Scott 51, this amendment would simply revoke the federal mask mandate order, which was issued on January 29, 2021, under the direction of President Biden, requiring persons to wear masks while on conveyances and at transportation hubs.
Madam Chair, I'd like to point out a couple of things. First of all, we are the legislative organ of the federal government. We are the lawmakers. To the extent CDC had authority to do what it did so by means only of delegated authority. Therefore, when we acquiesce to that, that's legislation by acquiescence. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. In this instance, when an order has been made, and these things have been enforced, sometimes with the threat, credible or otherwise, of criminal prosecution for people not wearing a mask, sometimes in interstate transportation corridors, sometimes in entirely intrastate activities. Our name is on that. When you hear these orders over and over again, you'll say, federal law requires this. People will routinely ask me, what federal law did that? People will then be left with the impression, Congress came up with this law. No, Congress delegated a bunch of stuff, as it does probably far too often. But our acquiescence here sends this signal. Now, perhaps we'd be comfortable with this if the science backed up this mandate, and if it backed up the idea with threatening people with fines and potentially criminal penalties if they don't comply. It doesn't. Not at all. People aren't even defending it anymore. If what we want to do is incentivize people taking adequate precautions, incentivize those who deem it appropriate getting the vaccines, we ought to encourage people to take those precautions and perhaps added precautions if they haven't been vaccinated. I can think of nothing that would encourage people to do that more than this. But this makes no sense. This is fundamentally un-American. This deals not only with deeply personal conduct, but in many respects, expressive conduct. I wholeheartedly support this amendment, and I encourage each of my colleagues to do the same.
Madam Chair, I want to speak out strongly in support of Senator Scott's amendments and also associate myself with Senator Lee's remarks. You know, every one of us flies airplanes an awful lot, and we've seen the announcement that begins at the beginning of every flight where they say federal law requires that you wear a mask. Now, the last I checked, under our constitutional system, if federal law requires it, then it is appropriate for the United States Congress to make that determination.